Hi, it's Jill Schlesinger. On this episode of Jill on Money, how can you bring more creativity into your work?
I don't like to look or hold my phone. I don't like to have it near me, like we're sitting in front of each other. I don't have any technology here because I think it is a barrier to listening and to speaking clearly and feeling like you have the time and space to respond organically as opposed to, I need to be thinking about the next thing.
Welcome to the Jill on Money podcast. We're presented by Marcus by Goldman Sachs. Sometimes our guests are really focused on your personal finances, but other times they're focused on you, your human capital, how you can make yourself better at work, get more out of your career. Today's guest is Tania Katan. She's written a book called Creative Trespassing. Tania says you don't have to turn into a corporate drone to kick butt in the working world. So to help us learn how to be distinctly creative within our jobs, here's our interview with Tania Katan.
You're listening to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
Tania Katan, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Jill.
All right, you know how we start this. You already spilled the beans that you actually know this. Best financial or career decision you've ever made?
Getting a degree in theater.
What?
I know.
How
Crazy
could that
talk.
be?
It trained me for everything that I do in my life, and the skills are so transferable to the workforce.
Do you know what's so funny?
Yeah.
Last year, end of the year, I sent out a note to maybe a dozen of my friends who are all different career types, but very successful in whatever career they were in. And I said, what is the best class you ever took? I just thought it was a fun question. And a number of them said improv. And why do you think that would be? Why improv?
Well, one game in improv that's really famous is called Yes and the whole idea is that you can't say no to any proposition that comes your way. You have to say yes and then ramp it up and come up with a better idea or something bigger. So it's about embracing change constantly.
You've written a book, and it's called Creative Trespassing, How to Put the Spark and Joy Back into Your Work and Life. So, why'd you do that?
Yeah, so I actually have been speaking publicly and in companies and corporations and organizations for years and about creativity in the workspace.
How did you get into that?
It started when I started making some programs at a contemporary art museum that were wilder than the typical programs. So, do you go to contemporary art museums?
Yes, I do. I have been to many.
Okay, I don't doubt this. I'm asking.
I like that, but I like that you asked. Yes, I have been to many.
Okay, so before I would go, I grew up very poor and with a single mommy.
Wait, where'd you grow up?
Phoenix, Arizona.
A Jewess in Phoenix? Wow.
I did not fit in any way. I'm just saying.
Not even Scottsdale. Phoenix?
You're so funny. Well, we were really poor.
So you couldn't be in Scottsdale.
No, not unless Section 8 housing supported it.
Hold on. I need to go back a second.
Yes,
we
please.
need the Tania origin
God.
story. You were born in Phoenix?
Born in New York.
Uh-huh.
My dad, New York cabbie. My mom, an aspiring social worker.
Okay.
They divorced. And my mom wanted to just be as far away from my dad as possible. And she had family in Arizona. So she moved us kids to Arizona.
And so you moved to Phoenix. You're poor, mom's struggling. How is she supporting you guys?
So this is where I learned actually that creativity is currency. We would have friends who really had money, and when summer camp came around, we wanted to go, and our friends were going, we couldn't afford it. So my mom bartered her skills as a cook for the camp so that we could go to summer camp.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And then she also taught art making classes so we could go to other summer camps. And and at first I was like embarrassed. It's like, oh my gosh, my mom's the cook. And then when they tasted her food, they're like, your mom's awesome. I realized that creativity had currency.
But she also had, your mom had some moxie and some guts and smarts that she took the skills she had and said, wait, how am I going to help my kids? And used it. That's so brilliant.
Yeah, totally. She's a survivor and a thriver. She didn't let obstacles stand in her way. And she was like a mama bear. She was going to let her kids starve or not be able to do things in the world.
Now, where is she from originally?
France.
So she grew up in France?
She spent the first 13 years of her life in France.
How's your French?
Tu parles français un petit peu.
That sounds pretty good, though.
Thank you.
Got the accent down.
Well, I know how to basically insult people in 3 different languages and then apologize in 2.
So you went to get a theater degree.
Yes.
And where did you go to do that?
I went to Arizona State University.
All right, ASU. Look at
I know.
who's there.
Go Sun Devils. Yeah.
Okay.
I went because I lived in Arizona, and again, having like an immigrant mom, who didn't have a degree. Nobody had a degree in my family. She's like, "Well, figure it out on your own." And I'm like, "Oh, there's a university nearby. Maybe I should apply."
And for free? Is that a state school that you got?
I wish it was.
It's not.
It's not.
That's the
Just
very
ask my student loan company.
That's a very confusing thing, because why not go to University of Arizona, which is in Tucson?
That's not free either.
What's this big state school?
That's California.
But you don't have any state school where it's
No.
cheaper as an
No,
in-state
you can
residence?
go. Well, in-state residence, it's cheaper.
Yeah.
It ain't free.
Okay.
Just saying.
So you went and you got some debt and you studied theater, right?
Yes.
Then what was your first job out of school?
I wanted to actually work in theater. I trained in playwriting, and so I got a job interning at Phoenix Theater, helping them in development. The only problem was I didn't know anything about like Excel spreadsheets, and my job was to reach out to donors and thank them.
Oh.
But I didn't know how to find the donors in the database, and then once I did, I think I thanked them for the wrong amount. So that didn't last very long.
No, not good.
Not
a
good at
good
all.
skill set match.
No.
What did you do after that?
After that, I really wanted to go into theater, so I left. I got an internship in San Francisco at a lifestyle magazine and went there and started writing plays that were produced.
Wow.
I didn't realize, however, that I wasn't going to make a living writing plays. Yeah. It was even better. I mean, then I jumped into all kinds of different jobs. I mean, I always had a slash mark. So it was like playwright / barista.
Uh-huh.
Playwright / print broker. I worked lots of different jobs and industries.
It's funny. So you're this very creative type, but on the other hand, you're like, I have this creative thing, but I got to make a living. And so you have basically created a career where you've channeled that creativity and figured out a way to monetize it in a weird way, right?
Yeah, totally.
And so did that just sort of happen by accident, or did you say, wait a minute, I can't make a living as a playwright. What can I do next? How did this evolve?
Yeah, so I think it was actually after my 20s and literally working as like a grocery store bagger and a barista and all these different jobs, I started to have this consciousness of like, what am I bringing to these jobs? Because I seem to be the same person and bringing in all these creative skills. It's just that the job is really different. The framework's really different. So, for example, when I used to bag groceries, I would engage my colleagues in little contests that were unofficial. I'd say, okay, how many grumpy customers can we make smile today? And that made the work go by faster, made it more fun. We didn't, lose money for the company. And so I realized, I have these skills that travel with me into different forms. And then that really blew my mind, because I thought, wow, we don't need to be like in a job or in an industry that's uniquely creative to be uniquely creative within our work.
Is that kind of your message, that wherever you are, you can be creative?
Absolutely.
And what about someone who says, I'm not creative, it doesn't matter?
A lot of people say that. And so creativity, I'm not talking about you need to be an artist or a painter or a writer. It's about using your imagination to create something. And whether you're an accountant or a marketer, you have to use your imagination to, let's say you're an accountant. Accountants love to say, well, be creative with the numbers, Tanya. Do you think that's a good idea? And I'm like, no, you don't. Like, you're not cooking the books, kids. But however, sometimes in your accounting, you'll miss something. And if you start to ask, like, well, what if I missed that because I was at lunch earlier that day talking to a good friend and I forgot to record that receipt? So that's just accessing memory to find out what's missing or to solve a problem.
We do have two different sides to us. And I think you're right. Like, accessing some of that creativity can really help.
So what happens with people who are pursuing something very specifically, like accounting, for example, or marketing, is they often have a rich creative life outside of the work that they relegate to the weekends. And so with the book, I am not only saying, but showing stories and examples of how to bring that creativity that we reserve for, the weekends into our 9 to 5, and that it actually fuels it and it helps us solve problems more easily.
So what is your feeling about sort of how much we should blend these two worlds? In other words, sometimes you want to just have something that's separate from your work life, and that's yours. You're a pianist or you're a cook or whatever you're doing. Is that better, worse? Judgment, no judgment?
No. It's actually great. So the key is, though, to maintain your creative, imaginative life, period. So whether you're doing it on the outside, you're still bringing in that energy and problem solving because you're doing it in different forms. How did I create that song from the piano? Oh, I hit this one note. You can't help. Your subconscious will bring that in and fuel your regular work.
So why does a company hire you right now to come in? What do you think the brass is seeking, and is it different than what you deliver?
What they want is a couple of things. One, a lot of companies, especially tech companies that are bringing me in, are all about innovation and about acceleration. So, coming up with new ideas and then executing on them and moving quickly. And so the second part is about alignment. Any company, they have their stated values. Here's what we believe, and they're writ large. And then they're the on the ground realities. And so I come in and I show them through my own work being embedded in companies and through artists, contemporary artists, and people they might not ever pursue or be aware of in the world. And I show how to make a connection between thought and form, between the idea and how we execute on it.
So when you go through this process in a workplace, where do you get pushback?
From every direction. That's actually, pushback is a sign that I'm on the right track. However, whenever I engage in creative trespassing when embedded in a company or organization, I'm always honoring the company, the mission, and the vision. It's about serving the greater good, not like serving me. So that's first and foremost. I get pushback. I remember making a video series for a contemporary art museum where I would run around and interview people, and I tried to win Employee of the Month, not earn it. The board of directors and concerned citizens and others were like, she's not working. Tania's just having fun. And I said, as if the two are mutually exclusive. But what happened was I learned how to qualify and quantify what I was doing. So if I could show the numbers, I was hired to do X, Y, and Z, increase revenue streams, engage new audience members. And if I could show the numbers, which I did, then what can you say?
This is Jill on Money.
We'll get back to our interview in just a second. Now, if you've been listening to this show, you probably recognize that it's me, Jill Schlesinger. I'm also a certified financial planner, a CBS News business analyst, and yes, the host of this podcast called Jill on Money. Okay, today I am here to tell you about our sponsor, Marcus by Goldman Sachs. Despite the taboo, money is not only personal, it is social. Marcus serves up financial tips, insights, and inspiration to help you get better about your finances. And you can join in on the conversation by following at Marcus by Goldman Sachs on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, or at Marcus on Twitter. Every follow is a financial step in the right direction. You can money. And now back to our interview with Tania Katan. There are 21 rules of creative trespassing. Doesn't sound
Who did that?
Yeah, you did that.
Oh my gosh, fantastic.
What do you want to give us your top three?
Gosh,
or not?
Yeah.
Here they are.
Oh,
I mean, you talk about fear. Do I have in the galleys? Do you have more than 21 in the final edition?
That's a great question. First of all, we made changes, and I even added a chapter after it was done. What? That's how I roll. I embrace change all the time. I would say, I have two favorite. So the rules correspond with the chapters.
Yeah.
So fear is so last year. I love.
You like that. Because people are fearful about a million things. They're so scared to rock the boat. I guess that there is fear that is always bubbling beneath. There's fear of the unknown.
Well, right. And there's also two things. One, theater trained me to address fear because the foundation of theater is suspension of disbelief. So that's the whole idea of you let go of your fear and your perceptions and assumptions and you take a leap of faith into an unknown world. So there you have it. That's a foundation for leaping into the unknown. And then also, I read Pema Chodron a lot, who's a Buddhist nun and teacher. And
like everybody.
No, I mean, I don't know. Maybe everybody. I've listened to the show. It's highly intelligent and savvy and evolving people are listening. And she talks about it, in the face of fear, it's not about avoiding it. It's about going towards it and embracing it. Once you do, it dissolves. So, I thought, I don't fit into technology. I don't belong here. And it was because I was an outsider that I was able to see some of the issues and find solutions for them.
I like the fear one, but I also like you have a very in-depth conversation about listening. There are so many people who are just not in tune. Now, again, maybe that's because these are people who are not used to listening. They're used to reading from a screen. Maybe that's part of the issue. But sometimes don't you find that you respond to something and there's no feedback from the person and you assume that person heard you? Even when I'm doing radio hits, somebody will ask me a question that I've just covered because they're trying to think forward and not being engaged in the moment.
Yes. I had to learn to listen. I was like, That's pre-technology, right? Until somebody said that I worked with was like, I can't explain anything to you. I'm like, what is wrong with you? You're so nasty. She's like, whenever I am trying to explain a process to you, you're just saying, like you already know it. And I was like, oh my gosh, and then for years, whenever I think of her, I'm like, she's just mean. And then one day I was aware that I was filling in the space between knowledge and learning with my And then I got conscious on what it means to listen. And as far as technology, because I wasn't weaned on it, I don't like to look or hold my phone. I don't like to have it near me. Like we're sitting in front of each other. I don't have any technology here because I think that it is a barrier to listening and to speaking clearly and feeling like you have the time and space to respond organically as opposed to, I need to be thinking about the next thing.
Talk about how you have like some creative ways to bring creativity into a rote job. Let's say somebody's listening here. Someone's sitting at a desk or commuting to work and gets to a desk where all day long they have to, copy edit. How can that person bring creativity or that type of role? How do you bring creativity to those kinds of jobs? Or maybe it's a coder, which can be creative, actually.
Totally, absolutely.
So what are some tips that you have that we can leave our dear listeners with? The world according to Tania.
So first of all, the easiest thing is to get up, to literally get up from your desk and go for a walk. Stanford did a study on walking and creativity, and by literally you being in motion, you're disrupting your habits and patterns that are actually keeping you stuck, and you will find that when you get back to your desk, even if you're taking a 5-10 minute walk, you will have more energy, focus, and creativity for your work.
Even inside the office.
Yeah, it's literally about getting up and moving your body because, think about what you're doing when you're stuck in this cycle of like, oh, I hate my job, or I can't solve this problem. You're sitting at your desk and you're typing away at your computer. You need to disrupt that action. So that's number one. And then two, in terms of taking breaks, you can take a break that's creatively focused in nature. So for example, you can say, okay, 10-minute creative writing session. The topic is your mother's hands, go. And just write. Or 10-minute dance break. The genre is hip hop and dance for 10 minutes. So instead of taking a lot, I notice this a lot, especially in corporate culture, is people think that when they take a break, that they're not doing their job, their boss is going to look down on them, that they need to be working hard, but they're getting less work done. So in the book, I call these exercises productive disruptions because actually taking a break from this, this stuck cycle will help you.
Wave to Ingrid. Ingrid, this is a great person. Just wave. Okay. So she's one of the more creative people in this building that she just brings her aura in here. And it's so funny because I think about the people that just always make you smile are often those people who are not doing those like stuck in your role, sitting at your desk, those types of people. They are the people who sort of bring joy to whatever they do. And even when she is like literally, she had to hold my hand through a new payroll system or expense system. And I'm like screaming and yelling at her. And I'm like, I don't get it. She's like, stop it. Listen to me. And like, but with a smile, she is. Did you see that? You like get her aura through the glass?
Yeah, I totally just gave an air hug. You can't see that through the radio waves.
But I mean, that is the kind of like, and so what some of the things that I think about when it comes to getting up and out is also surrounding yourself with people who actually nurture that in you.
Absolutely.
So if your boss isn't like that, find someone at work who is like that.
Totally. And
right?
That's something that I do and that I preach the good word of is assemble your own teams. Because a lot of times we get stuck in a team that is not supportive, not helping us achieve the larger mission of the organization. And so assemble your own. Nobody said to take permission and pick your own.
I like that. So we're going to take a walk, and outside's better than inside, of course.
Yes. And also when you go outside, you can actually, if you're not glued to your phone, you can have interactions with human beings on the street. And I go in to get a coffee, and I've met baristas who are actually musicians, and I've given them contracts to come and perform when I've curated shows.
That is so cool. That's very good.
So walk, look up.
Do you know a guy named Cal Newport? We had him on the podcast. He wrote a book called Digital Minimalism. And he's great. He's a Duke professor, incredibly smart. And I think between him and we had Daniel Pink on, and now listening to you, that this idea of like get out of the cage you've created for yourself. I think you're right. I think a lot of people are just scared and they don't want to seem this way or that way. But taking a walk around the building, going to visit somebody in a different part of the organization that does something completely different than what you do, getting that feeling that is outside of what your routine is, right?
Yep.
I often find that my greatest ideas come when because I do a lot of work from home because I have a radio line at home. And I do a bunch of radio hits, and then I get off the air and I lie down on the floor with the dogs. And I rub bellies, and amazingly, new ideas come up.
Yes.
It's like the genie. It's like rubbing the bottle, the genie comes out. I rub Charlie and Trixie's bellies, and an idea comes out.
I'm going to have to be more cognizant of that because I gave birth to a French bulldog named Felix. When people are like, where'd you get him? And I'm like, whoa, I gave birth. So it's also a litmus for me to see if I want to hang out with that person. If they're icked out, they don't understand the love.
Tania Katan, before we leave, we always ask our bookend question.
Yes.
Your best decision was getting a theater degree, financially.
Yes.
And career, really.
Yeah.
What was the worst?
Oh, I got to dig deep. Hold the line. Worst financial decision?
Maybe it was
my
debt.
20s. Okay, worst financial decision was when I was in my 20s, was maxing out a credit card. It felt awesome at the time, and then when I eventually paid it off, I never use a credit card. I always use debit card. I know that's how I roll. And when I bought a car, I buy it for cash.
That's great, Tania Katan. The book is Creative Trespassing. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This was awesome.
Thanks to Tania Katan. Her book is Creative Trespassing. Don't forget, we drop new episodes of Jill on Money every Tuesday and Thursday, and sometimes a Friday bonus too. If you would like to subscribe, just go to any place where you find your favorite podcast. Apple, Stitcher, radio.com, Google Play, wherever. If you'd like to get in touch with us, just send an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Our music is composed by Joel Goodman. Mark Talercio is our executive producer. We're distributed by Cadence 13, and the show is presented by Marcus by Goldman Sachs. See you next week.